What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? I worked as a bouncer at a high-end nightclub. The biggest boner of a rich kid, straight out of Malibu's Most Wanted, gets a VIP booth and bottle service. Racks up a massive bill trying to act like a baller. His credit card gets denied and he has to call his dad to come down at 1:30 a.m. because he can't order any more bottles. His dad comes down in his pajamas. Obviously ashamed and furious at this stooge of a kid. Ends up embarrassing the shit out of his kid in front of his whole group of friends. He takes the kid's keys and is about to leave when his kid makes some shitty comment and goes back in the club. The dad's about to walk away after he apologizes for his son. When we offer to drag him out the rough way, he smiles and accepts. That kid hit every door and step on the way out. Not the best story, but was one of the most satisfying experiences working at that club. My brother works at a rehab center for the kids of wealthy parents. He's always got stories, but the one that sticks with me the most was a kid who was in trouble with the law and doing rehab before his court appearances. You know, to look like a better person and hopefully the judge would go easier on him. He was mopey one day and my brother asks him what's wrong. The kid starts talking about how tough the whole experience has been for him, how it's been so hard on his family that his parents had to sell his house to pay for his rehab. My brother felt sympathetic and says, "Damn, that sucks that your parents had to sell their house over this," to which the kid corrected him, "No, they kept their house. They had to sell mine. I could absolutely survive on my own. My parents just pay for my food and house, but I pay for everything else. If I got a job I could pay for my food and house too." Said at 18, in the middle of a discussion between two middle-class peers who were talking about saving money because they had to pay for their own college and living expenses. About 5 minutes prior to this conversation, both peers had ordered the cheap dinner options and declined a shopping trip later that night, while rich girl was talking non-stop about buying the best/most expensive souvenirs for her friends. Once tried working a regular person retail job and quit within a couple weeks as it just wasn't right and I didn't like it. Reed had actual responsibilities for the first time. Moved cross-country for an 8-month education course, where her parents pay food, rent, and school. They also gave her a debit card which replenishes up to $500 when it hits $50. She still posts Snapchats with captions of that broke person life over pictures of her getting Starbucks every day, and insists she could survive on her own. Constantly suggests the most expensive options for meals, activities, etc., and tax on things like "We can just split the bill, I know you're saving but it's just, amount at least $50, you'll be fine right?" Then gets upset when people can't afford to spend time with her, or when someone dares to suggest that she helps cover costs. Friend got a theater with an arcade built over their family's 12-car garage. Parents didn't want the 5-year-old sister to be jealous, so they hired an architect to design and build her a fully functioning playhouse with a bathroom, AC, and bedroom. Just the tip of the iceberg with this family though. Update, lots of comments. I will try to round out the image. And for what it's worth, no, neither I nor my family is rich. We just lived really close to the family and my dad and mother became close friends with them. They were on the whole really nice and innocent people drunken on the spoils of wealth. I can say I genuinely love the family. Firstly, one commenter was correct. This is not really rich kid syndrome. And no, these are not normal rich people. These are ultra-rich, probably richer now than they were then. For example, George Bush Jr. visited the family's house to hold a fundraiser for his second campaign. This was not a typical rich family. Their father built a mini racetrack for his Lotus Esprit at his lake house. Also built a mega yacht with a garage for what most of us would consider a large boat on it. Surprise, he never really used it more than once or twice. An impulse purchase. The house, more aptly called a castle, was filled with game from African safaris taken in the 70s and 80s. The wife bought a popular fast food franchise unavailable in our area because she didn't like having to drive 30 minutes to get what she wanted. Once when I was swimming in the waterfall pool with the son, my mom called and reminded them I need to be home for some sports event or something, and we hopped in their Bentley dripping wet. It was the first time my feet ever touched a fur floor in a car soaking wet at that. At the Millennium, the father was into tattoos and regularly spent tens of thousands to fly the best tattoo artists in world and from Japan and LA to work on his Yakuza-style sash tattoo. I could go on and on. But the number one thing that I think might qualify one in the family for rich kid syndrome is that the father, who inherited his family business from his father, sold the business overseas in the late 80s. The company was the only reason the town had to exist. Ever since, the community has been recognized as the most depressed in the state, and the schools unequivocally the worst. I wouldn't say rich kid but definitely spoiled brat who thought he was rich. Befriended him in 5th grade over our interest in the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. First time I hung out at his place I noticed just how littered with stuff his room was. Some even unopened. I showed him some rare card that I had recently pulled from a pack. He got super jealous and angry that I wouldn't trade or sell it to him. He immediately got up and walked over to the family computer and booted up a site where you could buy cards and various other toys and such. Completely ignoring having me over, he's now on an online shopping spree adding stuff to the cart. After adding a few things he yells, "Where's the credit card?" And immediately his older sister comes running up the stairs to yell, "Kyle, Mom said no more buying stuff online," and closes the website and shuts off the computer. Kyle then proceeds to have a crying tantrum on the floor and I'm just standing there over him in shock at what's happening and how he's acting. I slowly stopped hanging out with him until completely avoiding him as his temperament got worse. Kid wasn't even rich either, if I remember correctly. Both of his parents were cops. Less snobby and more just. Phew. I had a friend whose family was ridiculously rich. She was so blind to just how lucky she was. She once left her limited edition Pikachu 2DS on a plane and was able to replace it and all the games she left behind too right away. Her biggest complaint was that she'd have to make up all that lost gameplay. She just kept whining about it. She was living on her own in an apartment her parents paid for despite being thousands of miles away, and she ordered dinner from gourmet places every night. She took great care to detail for me exactly what she was having every night, complete with M&Ms and yummies so I'd understand just how good the food was. I was living in a college dorm at the time, in a town that was basically a food desert. Nothing delivered unless you wanted Papa John's, and the options for dining out besides the campus dining hall were Moe's and a few other places of similar quality. I'd been pretty content with these, besides missing stuff from home, obviously, until her luxurious lifestyle started to make me envious. She just couldn't help but flaunt her wealth all the time. I talked to her once about it and at least she was kind enough to stop telling me every dinner, but everything else she said still reeked of how rich she was. When I was a kid I got bullied a lot by this one kid named Miguel growing up. His family was a lot better off and spoiled him, buying him the latest shoes, starter jackets, video games, etc. He was always showing it off and especially liked to rub it into my face. My parents both worked 2 jobs to try and provide a decent life for me growing up, but money was tight. Most of my clothes I either got from the thrift store or they were hand-me-downs from my older cousins. I remember one day my parents decided to treat me and take me to the Nike outlet and get a pair of brand new sneakers. This was the first pair of shoes I had in a long time that were all mine and never worn by anyone else. I remember being so excited to wear them to school and walked into the classroom with a big smile that day. Miguel takes one look at my shoes and says, "Nice new, old shoes. I had a pair of those last year when they were cool." With a few words he completely crushed the happiness high I was riding and brought me down instantly. The Nintendo DS just came out. It was like $150 and my family lived in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 20-year-old car that was always breaking down. We ate those cheap bags of Walmart beans and rice for months at one point. I expressed the desire to own one after my friend said he had one and I got, "Why can't your parents just buy you one? I don't get it, it's dirt cheap." He didn't want to be my friend after that anymore, literally avoided me and made fun of me for the rest of the year behind my back. I'm still salty about it. Maybe not rich kid syndrome, but middle class kid syndrome. I've seen this Aussie guy in a Thai pub on Koh Samui. He wanted to show bar girls that he's rich and lit up his cigarette using a burning 1,000 baht bill. He probably did not know how Thais love their king, and that the king just recently died, and his face is on the bill. The rich kid got his butt kicked so hard. Sorry for my English, but hopefully you can understand what I mean. So my best friend's wife teaches at a ritzy 40K per year private school. As in, $40,000 a year for elementary and middle school. I think the HS is like 50K plus. Well, she teaches 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember. And she said she always goes around the class after the summer break and asks them what they did over the summer, and she particularly remembers one kid complaining about how much his summer sucked because he was stuck on his parents' yacht all summer and they didn't even take it to anywhere cool, just Italy. I nanny rich kids and I know exactly what attitude you mean. Mine think that anyone who catches the bus is dangerous and poor and will kidnap them. They mocked a girl who got a scholarship to their expensive school so much that she transferred back to a public school. The mother has me sit in the house doing nothing for up to 8 hours when they have tradespeople and because she's convinced they will steal. The mother also declutters their old crap by dumping it on their cleaning lady because she knows all the refugees in next city and there are people who will really enjoy this stuff. It's a nice idea, but we're talking about old underwear with no elastic, soft toys with giant stains and missing limbs, school bags that are so old the plastic material has hardened and cracked off, and felt pens with no lids that dried out years ago. She just has no concept of what real people's lives are actually like, to think that they might want this garbage.